Live from our 7 Tasmania studios, your nightly news with Kim Miller begins now.
Good evening, everyone. Tasmania's proposed independent planning body designed to speed up development may mean communities lose their voice, according to several council mayors. Meanwhile, the government is also taking hits from the Greens, accusing the Premier of giving special treatment to a multi-million-dollar project in Devonport.
As the government looks to make sweeping changes to how home and business developments are approved across Tasmania, Hobart's mayors have taken a united stand against them.
It is very light on detail on a whole range of issues and not really fit for purpose.
It is a solution looking for a problem. It is bad legislation.
The biggest reform being proposed is introducing a development assessment panel, which would see projects be able to bypass council approval and go straight to an independent body for a decision.
We definitely want more social and affordable and aspirational housing in our region. We do not see this amendment as assisting in any way.
The Premier says the blowback from the councils is nothing more than hot air.
Frankly, I'm not interested in mayors that have self-interest, of course, and grandstanding. What I'm interested in is putting roofs over people's heads.
Labor has opted to sit on the fence until the reforms are tabled in Parliament.
If it helps get more development off the ground in Tasmania, we'll support it, but we need to see what it actually is.
But one thing the major parties do agree on is Jeremy Rockcliffe's call to introduce laws next Tuesday to approve the stalled Stony Rise development project in Devonport, after it was recently rejected by the Planning Commission.
When common sense does not prevail, we've got to step in and fix it.
If we don't put that band-aid on, then the development won't happen and the whole of the Northwest Coast will miss out on something they desperately want and need.
Much to the relief of the developer, which has been sitting on the plans since 2021.
This is a $40–50 million vote of confidence in Devonport and Tasmania itself.
But the Greens claim it's a reckless decision that could see more companies line up for special treatment.
It sets an awful precedent in relation to how planning might be done under Minister Ellis.
Anthony Dodd, 7 Tasmania News.
Tasmania's religious leaders and community organisations have penned a letter demanding the Premier stand firm on poker machine reform. The government's commitment to its own policy has been questioned after commissioning a contentious review into the legislation.
A high-stakes campaign against pokies. A dozen community leaders who've seen the harm gambling can do.
We see the financial hardship, we see the domestic violence, we see the lives ruined and the relationships broken.
The state government committed to reform 2 years ago, promising mandatory cashless cards with preset limits on what gamblers can lose.
It's really important to have these cards in place down here as well in Tasmania, because the people that it's going to help are the people who are suffering in silence at the moment.
Although the tech's already been rolled out at one of Australia's biggest casinos, Tasmania would be the first in the country to implement it statewide.
This reform was, without doubt, the best reform I have ever seen offered up in Australia.
But with a Deloitte review underway into the impacts of the laws on the state's gaming venues, the group is accusing vested interests of trying to put a stop on the nation-leading laws.
To see 90 super profits pubs now pressuring the Premier to defeat this reform is appalling.
The Premier today welcoming the group's letter, saying he's committed to consultation.
That policy remains in terms of pre-commitments introduced when practicable, and that is the policy as it stands right now.
Independent Meg Webb joining Christy Johnston in calling for Parliament to recommit to the reforms when it sits next week.
We need to see MPs step up, listen to the voices of community and make decisions that are right for Tasmanians.
With more debate over the contentious issue, a sure bet. Annie Green, 7 Tasmania News.
A mechanical engineering expert has conceded the jumping castle at Hillcrest Primary School might still have left the ground even if it was properly anchored. It comes as the defence begins to mount its case against the health and safety charge.
This morning started with mechanical engineer Roderick McDonald taking the stand for a third straight day. Earlier in his marathon testimony, he said that if Rosemary Gamble had secured the jumping castle with the recommended 8 pins instead of 4, it would have endured the dust devil, which ripped it from the ground at least 10 metres into the air at Hillcrest Primary School. Defence lawyer Chris Dockray today questioning Mr McDonald's calculations based on the dynamic and chaotic nature of the wind, suggesting it was possible the tragedy still would have occurred, with which Mr McDonald agreed. When asked whether Miss Gamble should have understood the complex Australian standards, he replied, "I would say she should have sought help." The claim that Miss Gamble had run the jumping castle at least 100 times over 6 years was put to Mr McDonald. He said, "Just because you've done something 100 times doesn't mean you've done it right," adding, "I don't believe her experience led to competence." Defence this afternoon calling their own mechanical engineering expert, Professor David Eager, who believes Miss Gamble was competent. Professor Eager's testimony has been delayed after the Crown objected to several elements of his expert report. He's expected to return to the stand when Magistrate Robert Webster makes his findings on those objections tomorrow morning. Nick Kelly, 7 Tasmanian News.
New figures obtained by Labor have revealed Tasmanians will be forking out $1.2 million a month to birth the new Spirit of Tasmania ferries overseas. A Department of State growth document estimates it will cost taxpayers nearly $25 million all up to store them in Scotland until mid-2026. But the Tasmanian Premier says more details need to be worked out before the full costs are known and how long the vessels will be there for. The opposition is also renewing its calls for a parliamentary committee to oversee the project. Meanwhile, the Premier is insisting he's getting on with his commitment to fix the Fery Fiasco. Jeremy Rockcliffe's celebrating a major Berth 3 milestone, inspecting 15-metre tall piles which are being installed for a vehicle ramp.
60% will be completed by Christmas, and they're a depth of between 8 and 15 metres. That is a great sound. Action has started. We said we'd fix the spirits. We're getting the job done.
And you can hear it being done. The government now expects Berth 3 to be completed by October 2026. A new exhibition is helping Tasmanian students share what feeling safe means to them. Their artwork catching the eye of Daniel Morecambe's parents, who tragically lost their son over 20 years ago. 7 Tasmanian News spoke exclusively to the couple about their efforts to keep their son's memory alive and keep Tasmanian children safe.
The disappearance of Daniel Morecambe captured the nation. In 2003, the 13-year-old was abducted while waiting at a bus stop and murdered. His body not found until 8 years later.
Please do not be sad. Appreciate that the evil act which took Daniel happened a long time ago.
Parents Bruce and Denise have been fighting every day since to keep children safe.
Daniel was taken away far too early, but his legacy is to keep all kids safe. So we can keep Daniel's legacy alive, his memory alive, and keep kids safe.
The pair visiting a special exhibition put together by students from across the Derwent Valley, each asked to draw their response to the question, what does safety mean to you?
It's not just capital cities that need to be safe, it's the whole state of Tasmania, so please recognise potential danger.
The artworks forming part of the annual Day for Daniel, now in its 20th year, equipping children with the skills to identify grooming and coercive behaviours and what to do when they feel unsafe.
How their body clues tick, who their safety team are, their trusted adults. A lot of the artwork here is the children saying they're safe when they're at home, when they're at their nana's place.
There were 500 instances of kidnapping and abduction recorded nationwide last year alone. And while in many cases the victim did know the perpetrator, safety experts say that the stranger danger message is just as relevant today.
21 years later, since we lost Daniel, we're still fighting for kids' rights and kids' safety, and we will continue to do that for each and every day that we draw breath.
Ruby Cairns, 7 Tasmania News.
Patient care on the northwest coast is in for a boost with Burnie's new $12.5 million ambulance Superstation now complete. The facility will allow for up to 20 vehicles to be on site at any given time and houses a training hub for paramedics across the region.
The training rooms here are world class. They'll enable us to do professional development for our paramedics so that our paramedics can continue to deliver the right care in the right place at the right times.
It has specialist decontamination facilities, which has been a critical learning post the COVID pandemic, and will ensure that we can isolate and deep clean ambulance vehicles.
The station will be fully operational by the end of the month. The Tasmanian Freight Equalisation scheme has come under the microscope, with a Senate inquiry examining if it has kept up with increasing freight costs and competition and shipping needs across Bass Strait.
It's a major gateway for goods. Bass Strait sees 99% of everything that comes in and out of Tasmania.
It is the be-all and end-all to producers and businesses in Tasmania because it's the only avenue that we have to get our product to the mainland.
But some say they're hitting rough waters, with increasing freight costs leaving many Tasmanian producers high and dry.
Sea freight rates are double. It's a significant difference, and that difference is just getting bigger and bigger.
Consumers also been hit with hip pocket pain.
Freight costs go on top of the product. So your milk, your bread, especially on King Island, Flinders Island, the cost goes up.
It's prompted a review into the Tasmanian Freight Equalisation scheme to level out the playing field with mainland and overseas competition for expenses by sea and land.
Benefits Tasmanians abundantly with very generous incentives, manufacturers and miners in agricultural, forestry and fishing.
It hasn't seen change since it was introduced in the 70s.
Taxation percentage has gone up 13 times in that time frame. The cost of freight across the strait has gone up so much.
Tasmanian businesses are saying the scheme is no longer fit for purpose, calling for it to be reformed and for benefits to be made more accessible. The state government on board advocating for a level playing field for Tasmania.
Reduce the red tape as much as possible, simplify it as much as possible.
The committee is expected to hand down its final report and recommendations on November 26. Rebecca Gaidaneris, 7 Tasmania News.
As the warmer months fast approach, sun safety is being put at the forefront of the classroom agenda. The timely push reminding Tasmanian schools of their role in keeping students safe this summer, both on and off the playground.
They're the 4 words burned into our memories from the schoolyard.
No hat, no play.
The policy, still the king of the playground, teaching important safety lessons from a young age.
We just want to make sure that people are slip, slop, slap, seek and slide, and schools have a really important part to play in that.
Sorrel School, one of many jumping on board Cancer Council Tasmania's SunSmart program.
The alarming increase in skin cancer rates across Australia kind of prompted us to update our SunSmart policy.
Giving students the education and the tools to protect themselves now and into the future.
A lot of sun can cause skin cancer. Putting sunscreen on, make sure you're wearing hats every day, even when it's really cloudy.
95% of primary schools have already signed up to the program, but it falls to just 50% in secondary schools. That's where the council sees a trend of students ditching their hats and their knowledge.
Despite knowing that knowledge, 80% of them still reported getting sunburnt the summer prior, and 2 out of 3 of them were still interested in having a suntan.
Getting sun smart instead of learning the hard way.
It hurts. It really, really stings when you put some stuff on it.
Victoria Risto, 7 Tasmania News.
Organisers of next year's Theatre Royal season are promising it will be the biggest selection of music, art and dance ever seen in the state. 22 shows are scheduled, with nearly half locally produced, all expected to draw strong crowd numbers. It's hoped Terrapin's performance of Feathers will see more children get involved in the theatre scene.
Which has already been seen by 16,500 school kids across Tasmania, and we're really excited to get it in front of a wider audience in theatres.
Tasmania's got some amazing artists living here, and somewhere like Theatre Royal has a real responsibility to create opportunity for artists to come together and develop new work.
The full 2025 program will be available from Saturday. The Tasmanian Symphony Orchestra is planning a performance like no other, announcing a show at Launceston Airport next year. The TSO and airport also partnering to support concerts across the state's north.
We're thrilled to be working with you as your own aspirations for Launceston Airport grow and take flight. Please pardon the pun.
The announcement part of celebrations marking the airport's most successful year on record, the total number of passengers since January tipping over 1.1 million. Former South Australian Premier and Crows Chairman John Olsen has thrown his support behind the proposed Macquarie Point Stadium. Closely involved with the redevelopment of Adelaide Oval, Olsen says Tasmania's tourism economy would greatly benefit from the development.
You are a candidate for attracting, through this new stadium, attracting all these add-ons that you won't believe it until it happens.
The Macquarie Point Stadium is being considered by the Tasmanian Planning Commission.
The Hurricanes have lost the toss, but they're at the crease first as they begin their clash with the Adelaide Strikers at Ninja Stadium. International signing Danny Wyatt-Hodge has played her last game for the Purple Army as she was bowled first ball. A short time ago, the Canes are 1 for 83 after 9 overs, and we'll have all the match highlights from tonight in tomorrow's bulletin. Coming off a loss to Western Australia earlier this month, the Tassie Tigers are hopeful for a win as they prepare to take on Queensland later this week. All-rounder Bo Webster, fresh off his role in the Australian A-team, says they will need to shut down the Bulls' disciplined bowlers, and he's looking forward to playing against the former teammate Ben McDermott.
Looking forward to catching up with him, but he's in good form as well, and as much as I love seeing him do well, it would be nice if we could get him cheaply this week.
Both team lineups are yet to be announced. The match will start on Friday at the Allen Border Field. Jack Jumper's assistant coach, Jared Weeks, has been announced as the new Hobart Chargers head coach. Weeks has been part of the team since its foundation 3 years ago. His extensive career spans over more than 250 NBL games across 5 clubs and has served as Tasmania's vice-captain in the final 2 playing seasons.
They're all a great bunch of people and yeah, just excited to jump on board and hopefully try and move the club in a good direction.
He'll remain on the Jack Jumpers coaching staff as the team prepares to take on the Bullets on Friday night.
We've already played them once this season. There was a close game, so we expect no different.
Will Magnay and Sean McDonald will be a game day call as to whether they will take the court. Both have been out with injuries.
Good evening. Hobart, 18 degrees today. Launceston reached 22, Burnie and Devonport highs of 21. 25 was the top today at St Helens and Friendly Beaches, Flinders Island and Fingal 23, Bushy Park 20, Smithton, Lowhead and Grove 19, King Island and Strawn 17. Well, not much rain came from the cloud over us today. 10 millimetres at Mount Seymour today, 10 millimetres fell at Henty Canal last night, and some just had a short shower at 3 this morning. Not much cloud about at the moment. Scattered thunderstorms lie over the eastern seaboard of the country and northwest WA. Some active convective cloud over coastal parts of the nation. Tomorrow a high moves over the bight, extending a ridge over Tasmania, the low pressure troughs dominating the mainland. The winds west to southwesterly at 15 to 25 knots, but reaching 30 knots at times over the south and lower east, swells to 4 metres in the south. We have a strong wind warning for waters between Wineglass Bay and Low Rocky Point. Forecast for tomorrow, a cloudy day for Hobart, 18 the maximum, same for New Norfolk, Cygnet 17 degrees. Launceston a high of 20, a shower or 2, 60% chance at least. Devonport partly cloudy and 19 also for Campbelltown with the chance of a shower. 18 for Burnie and mostly sunny. Strawn 15, a top of 18 for Smithton. St Helens tomorrow expecting 15 degrees with a shower or 2. Swansea 18, showers for Fingal and 17 degrees. On Friday a fine partly cloudy day with a chance of a shower over the northeast. A few showers developing into Saturday. Hobart expecting 26, and on Sunday a few showers across the state, contracting to the west and south later. Sunny and 30 in Perth, fine as well in Adelaide, cool and cloudy weather for Melbourne, a shower for Sydney and 23 the maximum, and a possible storm over Brisbane. Conditions clear at the moment, 18 in Hobart, Launceston 21 and Devonport currently 19. Got to cut it short, Kim. Wife's birthday, better get to the shops and grab her a present. She's probably at home waiting for a Cheerio. Can you give her one?
Happy birthday, Donna, and I hope you get a very big, expensive present, because I know he's a bit of a tight, you know what. That's all your news for now. I'll be back later with updates. Good night, everyone.